Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. In today's episode, we are going to talk about some things and also some stuff. So stay tuned and take a look at the stuff. Today's stuff consists of things, mainly. This seems like a long sentence, but the truth is, if you try to analyze it, you can see that it just plays around with the same verb. I guess it would be a good time to remind people that while you pronounce this word as read here, I didn't read it. Also here, I didn't read it. But then somehow it changes, even though it's the same spelling, to nobody read it. Because why not? But that's confusing only for people trying to learn English. In this case, we are trying to learn Hungarian, so what the hell am I talking about here? Nothing. Let's move on then. Alright, now it's impossible to directly translate didn't, although we can try to put that into there, and then it comes up as no, which is great, because that's what we need. But then it doesn't tell us that if I put read in there, what am I supposed? Well, it kind of does then. Well, this is easy. What am I gonna complain about now? That's pretty much taken care of. And I guess if I put I in there, then it gives us the correct conjugation. Oh, well, okay, fine. Still, please allow me to share my much more complicated way of doing this. Because, well, I assume this works with all the verbs in the world. Maybe it won't work with all the verbs in the world. Who knows? So let's go with olvas in this case, because that's the direct translation of read, and put that into verbix. And then try to find the proper conjugation, because this might not even tell you that if you put it in there, well, is it definite or indefinite? Well, the truth is that you have to remember that definite conjugation comes into place when we are talking about something in particular. And in this case, this is something in particular, although it might seem it's not, because it's just it, but I imagine a whole lot of conversation happening before someone actually says this. And it refers to some book that you and I, or everyone, all of us knows. Right, okay then. So we determined that we need the definite conjugation, and so because verbix provides us with all the things, we only need to have this page open and then just keep translating it. So let's see. It starts with nam, and then of course it's not olvasom but olvastam. And now that is a good question, which you might have asked, but I did ask in my head, that what's it? And yeah, it could be asked, but you have to remember that it could also mean est. So while in English you have the third person divided into three categories, and those three categories are he, she, or it, and we always use it when we refer to something that's not a girl or a boy. But in Hungarian, we have to take a more direct approach, and it's always a good practice, or best practice, if you will, to use this or that. So if you change it into this or that in your mind, that will actually tell you whether you're talking about something close to you or far away from you. And that's the big thing. If something is close to you, then you will have to translate this as. And if it's that something is very far away, then it's os. But you have to remember, because we are talking about the object here, because we are seeing something that is an object, even though it might not be a real object, but something imaginary, that you need the T. And that's what I've been telling you all along. It's like if I knew. Yeah, I probably knew. Not just that this is coming, but that is ultimately useful to make you remember that every object has the T. So in this case, even though it's some sort of pronoun or article we are dealing with, we need to conjugate it because everything gets conjugated. I remember an example, somebody asking that if we use the word this in a sentence and then we also add something, a noun as a tree for instance, then is it not enough to conjugate the tree and then you put the t at the end of fa, which becomes fat, because Hungarian is a fun language. But so you would say as fat, but no, because as is a separate expression and fa will require a definite article regardless, because that's Hungarian, not English. So you will end up with est or fat with two t's in there, because ultimately we have two objects. But in English you would not think that. But again, we are talking about Hungarian here. Let me quickly write that down for you and then we can move on with our lives. So let me just quickly write it down. Just like I said so 5 seconds ago. Every single expression is conjugated. So let's make that as blue and let's make that green. And also for some reason, let me just underline it. Just to make absolutely sure that that's what's going on. Okay, right. So that is third person, which is olvasta. And here we are. What a conundrum. English would say nobody, which is senki, and then would go ahead and translating it as like this. But the truth is that in Hungarian, just like this one, where everything gets the T and treated as separate expressions, these also are treated as separate expressions. So senki denies sort of or negates everybody or somebody, and not reading negates the reading part. So nobody, we are talking about nobody, and also they didn't read it, which in English might be a little bit excessive. There's a reason why double negative doesn't make any sense. Double negative doesn't make any sense because you have a word representing something and then you negate it. For instance, somebody becomes nobody, and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. Why would you negate all the other parts of the sentence?
A Hungarian sentence is a loose alliance of expressions rather than a whole thing. English believes sentences should be treated as a whole, and that makes all the difference when it comes to negating. In Hungarian, you have to negate every expression. In English, you only have to negate the sentence.
It seems like if language was based on mathematics, then you would have to learn some sort of crazy mathematics that it's inconsistent and horrible. But then again, as I always say, language is created by ordinary people without any scientific background, and language is developed without any scientific methods. It's, what's cool. And in this case, in Hungarian, somebody decided, like 1,000 years ago, that double negative, triple negative, quadruple negative is a good thing, and it would make sense, and the more negative you put in there, the better life is. I guess maybe that's why Hungarians are so gloomy and negative all the time. I don't know, and I refuse to complain about it. Probably that's why I'm a horrible Hungarian. So with that dishonor, let me continue fiddling with the sentence. Right. Is this sentence finished? Of course not. This is horrible. It's full of things that we repeat. Like, once you wrote this down, why would you ever need to write it down? It's obvious that we meant that part. So this was not read by others, then also that, and also that. It's brilliant. Now, there is one more thing that Hungarian loves to do. It's a bit excessive, like most things in Hungarian, and it comes from the fact that Hungarian really, really hates repetition. Every little thing we can do to avoid repetition, for instance, modifying this word from nem to sham, it makes life a little bit better. Now, of course, in English this would really complicate things, but let's just disregard what this means, and let's just go with that once you have a bunch of nams in a row, then it's cool to modify some of them, but not if it's just with a verb. It has to have a proper subject. So this cannot be notified, this cannot be modified, sorry, not notified, and this can because it has a subject. I hope that made sense. So with that thought, I believe we have finished our translation. Or at least there is nothing I can think of. So with that thought, I leave you alone on this Friday, because leaving people alone is always a nice thing, or so I think. But anyways, I will return to editing this bit, and you will return to, well, whatever you are doing at the moment, probably watching this video. Although that train of thought did not really make sense. Oh, whatever, it's Friday, who cares? I'm gonna go to the cinema, because, you know, socializing and all that. They say it's healthy. So I'll go to the cinema and watch the newest Star Wars film. I don't expect it to be great, but I will tell you all about it once I watched it. Maybe it's pretty good. Who knows? Well, it's Star Wars, and I watch Star Wars because spaceships fly in space and explode. I guess I'm easy to amuse. Anyways, have a great weekend. As usual lately, I'll be off, and see you on Monday. Goodbye.